Yes, sir.
My name's Aaron. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. My question is quick and simple. Should we see the Snyder Cut?
So, if I say the word Snyder Cut, that the clickbait headline is, Jim Lee talks about the Snyder Cut. And then, in the comments...
I'm not looking for hits. I'm just looking for an honest opinion, creative direction.
I'm not saying you would do this, sir. You look like a fine, upstanding gentleman. I'm just talking about the internet. And then the questions will be, how did he say the word Snyder Cut? Did he say it in a positive way, or did he say it in a negative way? How much was it Snyder Cut, hopeful, or Snyder Cut, downplayed? Right? I don't know. So it's a really tough question to answer. But I will say that, the only thing I'll say about this is that I think sometimes there's a movement to sort of segregate the audience and kind of dismiss a group and say they're not the fans, right? They're the people that like this, or they only like that. And I think that's something we need to resist. Honestly, we need every comic book fan that's out there. And whether you want the Snyder Cut or not, you're a DC fan, and I want you to be a DC fan. So that said, we have. We've been working on this slate. We have an amazing Batman movie. Suicide Squad is just killer, and Black Adam next year. These are all next year. We have Wonder Woman 84, which is, got tremendous momentum from the first movie. That was amazing. So there's a lot of great positive things happening, and that universe is continuing to move on. I think next year will be the first time ever that we'll have 3 theatrical releases in 1 year. And Walter Amato is in charge of DC Films. He's a great partner, loves DC, super creative, great relationship with filmmakers. So we're very positive and hopeful for the future of the DC extended universe.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Matt Jarbo here with 3 Buck Theater, and what you just saw was Jim Lee at C2E2 in Chicago talking about the future of the DCEU, as well as kind of hinting at the Snyder Cut. And at this point, we've seen a lot of headlines running around saying, oh, Jim Lee says that the Snyder Cut doesn't exist. Truth of the matter is, he said nothing of the sort. He really said nothing of the sort. He more or less made a joke about it, like, oh great, I'm being trapped into this particular conversation, and anything I say is going to garner headlines. So he knew the situation he finds himself in, and he knew ultimately the best way of addressing it. Now, I think they should just come right out and admit it. I think the cut is maybe further along than a lot of people have been thinking. I don't think it's as complete as the Ultimate Edition of BVS, but I do think it's well on its way to getting there. I don't know if additional photography is going to take place. There's been a little bit of a rumor surrounding that one. Of course, Zack Snyder himself loves, and I say this like realistically, he loves to get people worked up. He loves to get people thinking that there's something on the horizon. And I think he does it in some ways to troll Warner Brothers. I think he does it in some way to kind of maybe get back at them. But it does feel like there is something that is coming. And I have heard from multiple sources that HBO Max is going to be the place where it happens. And the reason why I bring that up here is because this article popped up a couple days ago on Screen Rant, and this was happening around the web as well, that Zack Snyder teases more Justice League reshoots with Batman and Superman, saying Zack Snyder's newest Justice League tease is the biggest yet, awarding a fan a golden ticket for access to the Snyder Cut's additional photography. Now, that's a little bit of a bold statement. It's not necessarily what I would argue as being the most true. But here's basically the story behind that is Zack Snyder decided that he was going to hold a fan art contest for Justice League, and there were over 1,200 submissions. So then he just announced the other day the final four. And when he announced the final four, he posted what the prize was going to be to his Instagram, or to his Vero, his Vero, where it is this particular clapboard right here. This is a clapboard from Shooting Justice League, and on the back of it, it says, "Please extend to the bearer of this slate the right to pass all security protocols and permission to operate this motion picture slate or scene and sync marker on the set of any additional photography for the motion picture known as Zack Snyder's Justice League in the unlikely and purely speculative event that such photography is needed." And that's got people freaking the hell out, right? Like, oh my God, they're going to be doing additional photography for this movie. No. It's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Not to say that we're not going to see the movie completed in some aspect, but it is not going to happen like that. There's no reason why they would. If they were going to shoot additional photography, this would have to go through the guild. This would have to go through all the different guilds. You'd have to have producers. You'd have to have the studio involved. You'd have to have Snyder coming back on board, getting the director credit. I mean, there would be a lot of things that would have to happen in order to make this a reality. Never mind the fact that all the cast would have to, whoever the cast would be that would have to be involved in this would have to come back in. And keep in mind that at this point, it's now been 4 years since they filmed Justice League. So it would just look a little bit weird and a little bit odd. This is more of just a wishful thinking scenario. Now, when Jim Lee talks about the DCEU, what was fascinating about that was the fact that he actually said the DC Extended Universe. No creative executive over at Warner's or DC Comics has ever uttered that term publicly. And that is a big issue. It's a big deal. That's a big deal. And the reason why that's a big deal is because we know from Comic-Con a couple years ago, and they were trying to like figure out where they wanted to take all this stuff. They had said the worlds of DC, and I was in Hall H when they broadcast that on the wall, and I'm like, what the fuck is the worlds of DC? Who cares about the worlds of DC? No one cares. They want the DCEU is what they want. This is what they want, and people have been pushing for it now for literally 7 years. We've been talking about this since Man of Steel in June 2013. We've been talking about this. And for some reason, they're so apprehensive to address it publicly, even though the movies are interconnected. Now what we're hearing, and this is just all rumor and speculation, is that the Batman is actually part of the DCEU. And it makes no sense for them to get rid of it. It really doesn't. And I think this is where AT&T is coming into the mix, right? I do. I think that under when it was just Time Warner owning DC Comics and them, gauging and looking at everything, they actually probably wanted to get rid of the DCEU. That's where the whole world of DC came from, right? They wanted to have their own, they were talking Flashpoint, all of these things for a long period of time. I think that when AT&T took over, they assessed the situation and they realized that the DCEU can do well. Now, the AT&T buyout happened after Joker was greenlit and after Joker went into production. So obviously that means that was in no way part of that deal. They had no say over that. And that is one of the reasons why I do think Joker is ultimately going to just be a one-off and in no way tied to the DCEU. But they have to realize that interconnectivity is what fans are asking for. And without interconnectivity, it's going to end up going away. So the fact that Jim Lee, who is the dude to kind of get the info from, said the DC Extended Universe, that actually means that things are in fact still going that direction. And he mentioned Wonder Woman 84 coming out in just a couple months, and that is part of the DCEU. They have Black Adam, they've got Shazam 2, they've got the Batman coming out next year. So basically confirming that in that comment that things are looking bright for the DCEU. That comment effectively means that the Batman is part of the DCEU. It's crazy to think about that, just that one little line. And he says it deliberately, by the way. This was totally deliberate. This wasn't anything that was meant to be taken out of context. This was absolutely fundamentally deliberate, because his whole first part of that was all, well, I say anything, I don't quite know what's going to happen, But then he ended that clip with that stuff. And I think that's going to be quite fascinating to see where they go. And I think this is now a directive by AT&T. see. He did mention Walter Hamada, and that Hamada has been running the show really well. We've got nothing out of Hamada so far, really. Nothing really we've gotten out of him. And so, you know, to put the faith and trust into that person is something that is, again, it's not being seen very well. And with the failure of Birds of Prey, that doesn't bode well for Hamada, especially with J.J. Abrams and that $500 million deal or $250 million deal to head over to take Bad Robot over to Warner Brothers. I do. And again, I think with the fact that AT&T is in charge, we're going to see a lot more interconnectivity. And that's going to be something that J.J. Abrams is going to probably take a big swing at. I don't expect Hamada to last past this year, if I'm being honest with you. I really don't. I really don't see that. I see JJ taking over, and I could be entirely wrong. But again, going back to the original point, Jim Lee saying the DC Extended Universe finally confirms it. It was a term that was never adopted by DC, and they've tried to avoid it for years. For years. And now we finally have someone admitting that they use it, and that's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy about that. But anyway, I leave it to you guys, your thoughts, your opinions. Do me a favor and let me know down in the comments below. And before we get out of here, just a couple quick things. I now have channel memberships here on $3 Theater. If you guys want to join up and help support the channel financially, that would be fantastic. You can do that starting at just $2 a month for the matinee. There's also the Prime at $5, which allows for end of the month member only live streams, and then IMAX for $10 a month, and that gets you the coveted executive producer credit. Your name would appear in the credits of the videos, and that is just something that we can do right now. We're giving it a shot, seeing how it plans out. Additionally, if you guys want to help get in on the action, if you want to keep the conversation going, head over here to facebook.com/groups/$3 Theater and join in on the group there. That's going to be where I put a lot of my focus and a lot of my time going forward, because I want to make sure we can build up a solid community of people to keep the conversation going when YouTube is terrible at not only notifications, but just alerting me that you guys have said something, and we can then not rely on this platform to make sure that the conversations about movies can keep going. And if you guys have like content you want to submit or stories you want me to talk about or to take a look at, that's honestly probably the best way to tell me. And if not, follow me on Patreon or follow me here at Twitter, and I'll talk to you guys all later. Have yourself a great day. Shilling is over, and peace out.